What's going on, you guys? This is your boy Taladia Plays. I am joined by VG Fight School, and this will be going up on his channel, hopefully. We'll be discussing about DC in the DC space for video games of what characters deserve their very own solo title, considering the fact that now we're getting a Wonder Woman game and Suicide Squad's on the way. It's like, what other characters do they need? Do does need a solo title? So welcome, VG Fight School.
Thanks so much for having me, Taladi. I appreciate the invite, and thanks for being flexible through
Yeah.
the chaos.
No, I understand totally. So I'm flexible to do this stuff and to do this recording and furthermore, it's just a great opportunity for me to actually collaborate with you with such a great content creator.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, as we all know, the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is literally delayed to next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Wonder Woman, we don't know when Wonder Woman is going to be released at this point.
2025. I'm just joking. I'm just playing. I just threw 2025 out there.
You threw 2025, yeah. What other characters do you really think deserve their very own solo title? And where do you think Warner Brothers Games would look at this as an ideal choice for them to venture into that? Venture into those IPs and say, look, hey, we need to make this character to have this solo game, or this character to have their very own game. Like, how do you feel about it?
It's a very interesting question because I think I've answered it. So thankfully, I did a podcast with Comic Con's gaming, and I think we were talking about some stuff like that. So if we were to go down the list, I think we can't just go find another character from a pocket or a corner somewhere. We have to kind of go with the OGs, because the OGs of the DC universe, in terms of a lot of their characters and their different personalities, are Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Batman has got a lot of representation. There's no shortage of Batman material: movies, animated series, video games, comics as well. Wonder Woman has been represented, and Superman as well, in some video games, but they've also had their own limelight in other forms of media as well, right?
Yes.
So now we're looking at the video game space, and the only missing person is obviously Superman.
Yes.
The Wonder Woman game is coming. Yes, it's being developed. It's being made. Seems like it's actually reached a really decent point in development in my mind. I mean, I'm looking at the talent that they attracted. I don't know if they attracted some really, really good talent that left what they were doing. I think they were working, one of them was working on Forza or some big game.
Yes.
And he left and went to Monolith to go work on this game. So he's really passionate and he loves the way the team rocks. So I like his testament about what he said, because he's an outsider in a sense.
Yes.
So it seems like there's some solid development going on with that. But Superman, we haven't heard anything.
I do
know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know that some of the devs from Warner Brothers Games in Montreal have actually shifted focus onto other IPs like MK1 and the Wonder Woman game and Suicide Squad, considering the fact that in my opinion, I think Gotham Knights is pretty much done as for us to get content for that game. Pretty much.
And that's fair. The reception was not good, so it's one of those games that just did not hit. In my opinion, anyways, it wasn't fortunate. There's just unlucky game. That's basically what I call the project. It's not like the game. I mean, some people will say the game is bad, but where's the empirical evidence for that? We can't really give too much other than the collection of people's experiences, which I still go back from time to time and I look at the review scores. The review scores on Xbox are still trending. They're trending 3.9 out of 5. They were like 4.1, and then they moved down to 4 with new people coming in and adding their opinions, and then Steam still is sitting at 70%, dead on 70% in terms of favorability, which some of the negatives are based on some really weird things as well that are not really gameplay related. But I'm sure there are people who didn't like the game who still gave it who gave it a positive rating. So we can balance that out. So 70-30, I think it's actually a fair place, but today's gaming scene is too polarizing for a game like Gotham Knights to thrive. Back then, we used to get decent games, okay games, and we didn't used to bother. We were like, oh yeah, that's good, that's decent, But in today's day and age, every single thing, including one FPS, is going to be picked over by, the internet community, and a lot of people are coming at it from a good faith measure, but there are a lot of people who are bad actors. I've been looking a lot of what people have been saying, in regard to a lot of this Microsoft, Xbox, and the conversation. The loudest voices are bad faith actors, in my opinion. I think they're not here to actually argue, the reality. I think they're interested more in scoring points, or they have some motive. Maybe they may not know that that's what they're portraying anyways, but that's my perception of a lot of the conversation. So it's a very hard space today to actually talk sensibly about gaming in that regard. So Gotham Knights, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's done. I think it is. And if the developers have moved on to something else even more exciting. Did you see Mortal Kombat 1?
Yes, I did. I am looking forward to that game, but I have to get that on sale, unfortunately, because I just purchased Marvel Spider-Man 2 because
Okay.
that's a game that I'm looking forward to, and it's coming out roughly a month apart from
Nah,
from.
I'm buying Mortal Kombat. Forget Spider-Man.
I mean,
Well,
if I had to pick between the two, it's like it's very difficult because one game is action adventure, the other one's a fighting game. I
yeah.
like both, but because like I can only afford one game at a time, and plus with Suicide Squad literally coming out in
Hmm.
February, it's like you're gonna have to make the ultimate sacrifice, which is
Yeah.
basically choosing
Yeah.
the one game over the other.
I would lean me personally. I would probably get Spider-Man on sale, because for someone who's not a Spider-Man fan, I've spent way more money on Spider-Man than even some Spider-Man fans. You won't, because my children are Spider-Man fans,
Right.
and so I've been gathering a lot of the PlayStation 3 titles for them. I have a lot of the Spider-Man titles just so that when they're old enough, if they want to play, they can still have access to those games. So yeah, I've spent my fair share of Spider-Man, so I wouldn't mind if I waited for the Spider-Man game to go on sale a bit. For Mortal Kombat, as somebody who will be playing, who wants to play avidly, I think day one purchases are important because I'm kind of wanting to nerd out and not be on the back foot when I get into the space. It's
Yes.
not. It
Yeah.
was helpful to jump into Mortal Kombat 11 on day one so I could fail with everybody and win with everybody and get used to the game and learn, all the mechanics and punishes and techs and all that stuff. That's been really helpful. And I did the same thing with Street Fighter,
Yes.
and that's been the best way. I tried waiting with MKX, and I felt like I was lost. I'm not a good student anyways, but when I miss school, I just feel I give up. So I can't miss school in quote. And
Yeah. Yeah. I
when school
understand.
starts, come when MK1 comes out, I don't know if I'll be able to keep up if I don't jump in day one
Right.
and start experimenting and gaining muscle memory and all that. So that's one of the reasons I'm going for
But
MK1 day one over Spider-Man.
I mean, if it was like a DC game, for example, a Superman game, I would drop the Spider-Man game over for a Superman game, and
Agreed.
that's purely because Superman is my favorite character, and
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is, for me, it's like I'm an Injustice fan over an MK fan. I'm not gonna lie there. It's just like I like the Injustice mechanics compared to the MK mechanics because even though they're similar, I just think if you want like super moves, you can there's no gore and stuff. Then
Mm-hmm.
Injustice is the best way to play the game. So and
I played Injustice late as well. That's why I couldn't get into it. I
yeah,
remember getting it at close to launch, but by then, I wasn't really able to compete because I was just a few weeks late. So I went ahead and just sold my copy and then eventually bought it again later on and tried to start learning, but by then I was just way too behind. When I go on ranked matches, even though I was able to learn some combos, I just could not learn everybody. It takes time to learn all the other roster characters, to
yeah,
learn their strengths and weaknesses so that you can capitalize on them. So you're not only learning your character. So Injustice 2 is sitting gathering dust in my libraries because I have it on PlayStation Plus and all
same.
this stuff, and I have a PC version of it. But at the end of the day, I can't, except maybe I sat down with somebody who was patient enough to say, okay, let's walk through some of the mechanics and all that. But I just feel like it was a loss. I missed a big window of opportunity, and I fight myself every day for missing out on a DC fighting game like that. So
I mean, when it comes down to new properties and new IPs, I think the main key focal point is like what what is the game mechanic going to be like? Like obviously,
Mm-hmm.
single player experiences are a lot different to fighting game experiences, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're two different mechanics. Now, obviously, I wanted to ask you this question: is like, do you think if WB Games Montreal were planning a Superman game, do you think they should focus on a RPG style of a Superman game, similar to Gotham Knights? Or do you think they should focus on a brawler type game like Factor 5 did back in the day?
Hmm. What a loaded question. The kind of question that'd get me dislikes.
I mean, it's an honest question at the end of the
It
day.
is. It is an honest question, yes. But you know, my topics have been so polarizing, and I have almost the antithetical framework. So for the longest time, I've never necessarily shared my opinions on the exact style of video game that I think Superman should be. But believe it or not, I don't even think a traditional RPG will cut it for Superman, nor a brawler. So yes, there will be an RPG esque side to the system. I think would really accentuate Superman, but you must never say it out loud. You
Hmm.
must develop the game and then don't tell people that this is the kind of game you're developing until they actually start playing it and then they go, "Oh, so we're playing this type of game." Because if you dare say it, the polarization of gamers today is probably going to shut down the idea or turn the idea negative when in reality it makes a lot of sense, which is a Souls like. Hear me out. Superman. I hope I haven't lost you.
No, you haven't actually. You've got me
Okay.
intrigued. You've got me intrigued in
Okay.
learning the mechanics. So,
Okay, good. Superman is such a powerful character
mhm.
that if you were to want to match him with enemies, the enemies have to be almost otherworldly to make sense from a gameplay perspective where they can actually trade punches and trade blows with him. So, what you need is a certain level of demigod expression going against Superman for the entirety of the game with a little bit of relief with specific kinds of minions here and there. That's pretty much what Superman understands in terms of meeting his match. Because if you made the brawler, you'd have to account for all the unrealistic things and suspension of belief and all that stuff, like I've mentioned in my other videos. You know, like Superman being able to take a hit from this enemy NPC, but how come he didn't destroy that building? Yet he threw the enemy NPC through the building and the enemy NPC destroyed the building. And then how is he going to deal with human characters and all that stuff? No, you have to, if you're going to make a game that will really, really appeal and make Superman just go and everyone go, whoa, Superman's got to be fighting demigods and monsters. And I'm talking different threats from all over the Superman universe that you have to find, you know, and dig and reach within the library, the deep, deep libraries to be
the
able to have Superman.
the
Not
basically
only that,
so basically
yes,
like the lore of Superman from like the Silver Age, the Golden Age, you know,
pretty much,
pretty much
pretty much.
those types of
You're
characters.
gonna go have to find Parasite from Paul Dini's animated series. You're gonna have to find Lobo. You're gonna have to find there's an enemy class that Superman faces, and I'm sure you've seen the animated series. In fact, you're the one
Yes.
who almost gave away my secret. I remember you were making
Yeah.
comments, and I was like, Teladia,
Yeah.
you're gonna give away my
Yeah.
secret sauce,
Yeah.
and and I was like, that's because you've seen Superman very vulnerable enough to be able to realize like this character has an opening. And you see, a lot of this is why I say the gaming space is so polarizing. Sometimes we have to just sit down and actually just, you know, I don't know, be more thoughtful about how things could work out if we actually needed to break a barrier. We can't. Creativity is never done in a box. Like you see a lot of people say, "Oh, it can't be done. Superman's too overpowered." I'm like, no, 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 no. You're putting the creative, enterprise in a box. No, you got to take it out. So the Souls games, what their biggest appeal is their boss fights. These big ginormous
Yeah.
creatures that are towering over you. Superman having to fight creatures like that will be, insane. Give him a dozen of them. Come up with a dozen, massive creatures that he has to fight, and you are going to, and then and then let's put him in a space, in a container. Let's put him in a place where his powers are weakened by some measure, like maybe mess with his mind. We've seen different things, like in Smallville, where he forgets himself. Does he even remember that he has powers anymore? Or, there's so many things that we could do. We could even come in with the side of magic, which is something that, is arguably a crazy conversation in the Superman space. And you'll find that Superman, because you have him in a controlled environment with these massive monsters that, he's dealt with, because there's lore backing them up and they've given him a hard time, he can now find ways to overcome, which is the RPG-esque side that comes in. So Superman now, because he's disadvantaged, is now starting to find things that will help him, to gain the upper hand in these encounters. And then he's fighting his way towards getting that full force. I mean, you can keep him away from the sun. You can maybe put him in a place with red sun. Remember when he and Lobo got captured?
Yes.
How were they contained? So these are questions that have already been answered. I just can't see how, people say things like, oh, he's too overpowered. I'm like, yeah, you got to go back and keep looking,
They also got to look at the comics as well. Like Superman Warworld is a prime example of Superman being off-world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And essentially him fighting off against dozens of non-earthly people.
Oh yeah, you have to take him out of Earth. Those are the two things you have to do. You have to give him supersonic-sized enemies, and you have to take him away from his comfort zone. His comfort zone is Earth. Krypton would have been his comfort zone, but it no longer exists. So Earth being his comfort zone, you have to really remove him from there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if he was to be in an Earth setting metropolis, I think we only just scratched the surface with Superman Returns, because they did make a great game when EA made the game. They made a decent enough game, but it only just touched the surface. Whereas, if we got how Factor 5 was planning it, but on a grander scale, and if they had the backing of from the publishers and the people at Warner Brothers and everything, I think we would have cemented to having multiple Superman games, right? And
believe it or not, I've never played a Superman game. The only games I played with Superman in it are Injustice. I never even played those other games from back in the day. I just liked Superman from the cartoons. I never even read a lot of comics. And when I found out those games were a thing, I was already gaming on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, which we didn't seem to have any games like that. So Batman Arkham was where I got into, and I was like, oh my gosh, superhero gaming rocks. And so I definitely see that. So if the developers at Warner Brothers Montreal, and to answer your question, if the devs at Warner Brothers Montreal are going for a Superman game, a Souls-like will not be out of the question in my mind. But again, they can't tell people that they're making a Souls-like.
Yeah.
Because if they do it, when they said, oh, we're making, Gotham Knights and it's going to be an RPG, people are like, we don't want an RPG. Why does it look like Assassin's Creed?
Yeah.
And then you tell them they're making a Souls-like, and they're like, oh no, it looks like Dark Souls. No, just tell them we're just making Superman, and you don't make a brawler out of him. It's just not. I don't think it fits. This is just my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, which I respect your opinion. So it brings me to my next question, of course, which is, what other characters besides Superman? What other characters do you think deserve their very own game? Besides, obviously, we know Gotham Knights had had the four main Bat family members. Do you think Teen Titans would have been a viable option if, let's say if Gotham Knights was a success? And do you think that a Justice League game or better yet, a Green Lantern game could work in the gaming space?
Those are very good questions. So the first thing we have to look at is these video games coming out, especially in the superhero space, they are bound by popularity. They have to be able to meet a popularity, concept. And what I mean by that is when the marketing teams or the producers or the directors are looking at, okay, what game are we going to bring out? It seems like everybody's pursuing the brand name today because the competition has just gotten insane. So what is the atmosphere for a Green Lantern to do well as compared to Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman in the last few years has been, has gotten a very positive limelight. She's been back in the limelight, and she's had 2 movies, and so that's going to resonate for the character. You make a Batman game today again, everybody's gonna love it because he's always in the news. You make a Superman game right now, so the question I'm looking at is, which character is going to have that mass appeal? Because we have to be realistic. Because if you left it up to me and say who I deserve, simple, Black Canary. I'm sure you're probably going, where did that come from? Yeah. Black Canary to me seems like she's going to make for a solid brawler game. It's insane how good it's going to be. You can even make the game like a companion style game where Kratos and Atreus, right?
Yes.
So think about Dina and is her name Dinah? Dinah. I forgot. Dinah and Oliver, her husband, where they're playing like, a brawler type deal. We're back and forth. Once in a while, he comes with her on missions and he's helping her do stuff from time to time. But at the end of the day, because she's such a skilled fighter, she has a game that's actually, tailored to herself. That would be if it was left to me, if I had to direct the game, because at that point, we would have so much creative freedom. As the development team will have so much creative freedom, they'll have very minimal resistance to, to any precedence that's already there. Gotham Knights lived in the shadow of the Arkham games. There was no getting out of it. Does that make sense? Almost every review you saw, Arkham. It doesn't have this is like Arkham does. It doesn't look like Arkham does. It doesn't do it. But if you make a Black Canary game, now the rules are basically reset. There is no precedence for a character like, Black Canary. And so you're solid because it's a human character. It's not like some otherworldly character like Wonder Woman. So you get to set the rules as to where you want to expand her powers and where you want to expand her abilities throughout the game, and your lore and your story. You could make modifications to your lore and your story, and you're not gonna get flack like Mystic Leap. When people saw the Mystic Leap, they were like, oh my gosh, this looks very weird. Why is Red Hood doing this? When in reality they were just expanding from some of the different literature that's out there. But with Black Canary, where we don't have a video game for her, we have her in a video game, but we don't have a video game dedicated to her in any way. You just leave things open. And I think that's what Wonder Woman is going to enjoy, because we don't really have a video game dedicated to her, in my memory anyways. It might be an old Wonder Woman game somewhere, because I've looked at a lot of these channels that do, Wonder Woman in games from, 1987 till today or whatever it is.
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah. So, but any Wonder Woman game that comes out now, there are literally thousands and thousands of gamers that would see it and think it's the first Wonder Woman game ever, because those other titles have just been so far in the past. I think that would be the case. So that character will have to be a character that's based on, if we were thinking about it from a realistic perspective, they'd have the market appeal. But left to me, deserving, I think one that's relatively that has relative what's the word I'm looking for, that's not too well preceded by much material in the video game space. I guess that's how I should put it, because they will thrive in a sense. Green Lantern, would he thrive? I think so. I think he meets the intersection. Actually, he's popular enough. He's more popular than Black Canary. Is that something we can agree on?
We kind of agree that he is more popular than Black Canary.
Okay.
But I feel like if we're gonna do Green Lantern, it cannot be what we got for that Green Lantern game that we got in 2011. No.
Wait, we got a Green Lantern game in 2011. That's the thing. I'm such an Arkham spoiled.
So in 2011 there was a movie tie-in game, Rise of the.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was a movie tie-in game called Green Lantern: Rise of the Manhunters.
Oh.
And
interesting.
I never got the game, but I do know one of my friends actually played it on stream and whatnot, and I was just like, this game sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's like it's a bad gameplay mechanic that they use. They literally, because the original asset for that game was going to be for a Justice League game. the developers that
Mm.
made it, but they turned it into a Green Lantern game, movie time Green Lantern game, and it failed. So yes, I would like to see a Green Lantern game, but I hope it doesn't turn out for what we got in previous years. I would like to see something new, something fresh. I think possibly for what, like similar to what we got in Gotham Knights.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be pretty cool for a Green Lantern game, in my opinion, because an RPG type of game, Green Lantern isn't grounded like Gotham Knights, but there is some certain mechanics like constructs would be pretty cool that you can use in an RPG element.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes, Green Lantern is definitely the one character that it makes a lot of sense to give an RPG game. I agree with you. Yes, very much so. Very much so.
I mean, it all depends on how Warner Brothers perceives the IPs now. Like what are they gonna do going forward, considering the fact that now, uh, if we look at it, I don't see Warner Brothers going back to Batman Arkham, not for maybe for a few years time, because like after Suicide Squad, what is the how are they gonna go back and do Batman again? They pretty much can't. It has to be a reboot in some way, shape, or form. Same with the Injustice games. It's like you're gonna how you gonna go forward with the game. Like the only thing you can do is recast Batman, but
Mm.
do you get what I mean? It's like they need these other IPs to have their own game, like with Titans, Green Lantern, Superman, Flash. I would even mention Flash as well because Flash is another character. Just recently got a film, and I went to see the film. I'm just like, why hasn't there been uh, a Flash game? That would be really, earth shattering because of his super speed. It'd be pretty cool. Um, but nobody has really tackled these IPs, and it really saddens me because like these IPs could make millions and millions of dollars in revenue.
So the first thing is, possibly the way the world of this whole IP thing works is it's very interesting. It's not like I don't think the reason they don't have games is because it's a question of why don't they have games. I think it's a question of just the business strategy overall. So let's go ahead and look first at the big players. So who can develop these games at the quality that DC would be comfortable with? The publishers that can develop games like that are actually few. There are not too many of them. Number two, Warner Brothers may have a strategy where they are quite adamant about licensing anything out anymore. If you get what I mean, they may want
Yeah,
to do a lot of in-house stuff. So when you think about, those two aspects, you think about the big players, EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, and so on and so forth. Their business philosophies are very different. Ubisoft is partnering with a lot with Disney right now. So it seems like that's the partnership that they probably envision for the next few years. EA is going to Marvel and also some Disney stuff as well. And it seems like that's probably what they're going to be doing for now. And while they're reining in some of their IPs, like their soccer, because FIFA has already expired, they're not renewing that. They're just going to do their own EA teams or whatever it is. Then you look at Take Two Interactive. They make a specific set of games. You look at Rockstar. Rockstar is not going to make your game, and they're not going to share profits with you. So and then Microsoft doesn't care. Microsoft just wants somebody else to make the game so that they can put it on Game Pass one day. They don't want to spend the investment for that. They would rather spend money on infrastructure. So right now, gaming overall is changing so much that what I think is going to happen is the indie scene needs to come in with superhero titles that give glimpses of these, established characters, and then they can take risks there, if you get what I mean, and then make games with really solid mechanics. Because right now, unless DC is going to license out its IPs, which James has not seemingly shown any interest in doing that, I think we're going to be in a really weird place where these characters are going to be sitting here and no one's going to make a game about them. And if anything, the games you're going to be seeing are possibly going to be games that James Gunn is sanctioning based on his movies or his vision, which I don't remember seeing Green Lantern there. So I won't be surprised if there's a Batman reboot game right after all these other games are made.
I
If you get
mean,
what I mean, like
yeah,
Rocksteady is doing something, or maybe a Superman game, but still within James Gunn's universe and vision and all that stuff, like he's promised to, to get out.
yeah. I mean, from what saw from the article by Tweaktown, where David Zaslav did the earning call and basically said that if we're going into the world of Superman and people want to explore that, then we can make a video game about him, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
in that video game space of the Superman character. So it's just like it makes me think that if David Zaslav has got so much faith in just doing more video games for DC brands, I can see a DCU game in the next 2 years. I can see that happening more over than them going, okay, well we'll make it in the Gotham Knights world. Because I would like to see a Gotham Knights Superman game or a Gotham Knights Green Lantern game. But I just think the way things are going, the way things are shifting, is that they're going to focus more on the DCU side of it compared to Elseworlds, which is kind of a bummer because I would rather had Elseworld stories that are self-contained and they don't like go all over the place, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah,
I mean that.
my friend.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, no, finish up. You were saying something.
I was gonna say that it just makes me think that I just hope whatever James Gunn is planning, because literally next month it's San Diego Comic Con, so
Mm,
pretty much we might get some information for the rest of the DCU slate, or we might not, and we might just wait until next year, next year's Comic Con to basically get stuff, because yet again this is coming back to the phase of DC needs more DC games than ever before, whereas Marvel are just pushing out different IPs. Like you got the Black Panther, Captain America game, you got the Iron Man game from EA, then you've got Spider-Man 2, you've got the Wolverine game. So if you know what I mean, where DC needs to do this stuff, but because they're not doing it and they're just focusing on in-house rather than being like, okay, well, we'll give it to this publisher, or, sorry, this developer or this developer. It's like, it, what's the point of them hanging on to this stuff?
yeah, I mean, I definitely understand, but again, their business model is where it's keeping. And to be honest, I feel disenfranchised by DC, and I felt that way for a long time.
Yeah,
And it's not because I'm being a pessimist. I'm a huge optimist, and so but seeing the way that they're handling their gaming arm, I don't know what their interests are. I don't know what they, I don't think what they, I don't know what they envision when it comes to their development cycles. And even with Mortal Kombat 1, I strongly believe that that game may have been an Injustice game in the making. It's just my opinion. But seeing how successful financially Mortal Kombat was, 11 was, it seemed like they decided that they were going to go with, another Mortal Kombat game to just follow through with that story because there's already a strong fan base.
yeah,
So the financial side is a very huge part. But they're not acquiring studios like Sony was, like being a publisher, who was acquired Exit and all these other studios. And to me, I just don't know if they're too spread thin or, because their focus is so broad, we're not seeing that, we're not seeing the delivery that we expect. Because we expect the delivery that comes from, looking at a lot of these other publishers whose main focus is video games. But with Warner Brothers, it's kind of hit or miss. But again, to give credit where credit is due, they have been delivering some of their products as well. But again, like we said, it seems their what do I call it? Their focus is just too broad. Hogwarts Legacy was a massive hit this year.
yeah.
But if you're a superhero fan, all you got was Gotham Knights from last year and Suicide Squad delayed to next year. So I would say they're doing okay.
I mean,
But it's just interesting.
I mean, the only thing that Warner Brothers has really going for them right now is MK1, literally.
Yeah,
it,
for this quarter,
for
but
this quarter,
remember the beginning of this year,
they had
they
how
were talking about them having a game of the year,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So
Plus,
I mean,
as well.
again, but for those of us who are like,
Mhm.
um, who are superhero fans, it just we don't have much. That's the thing. We
Yeah,
never get much.
we never get much. But I do know one thing when it comes, because you mentioned about Injustice. I do know that Ed Boon did come out in an IGN interview and did state that they were straight up going for MK because of not only because of the restrictions they were in, but there was other financial reasons and that really couldn't couldn't go in detail into, but like just because of the merger, like pretty much everyone can guess this is because of the WB merger, and then you also had like the problem with the DC IPs, like, well, is DC going to allow us to use the IPs because because of the whole
Mm,
shake up with the studio, because once they were making plans to make a DC studio, it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do about Injustice? Is because they're not closed the door on Injustice, by the way. They're still planning to make it. So that door
yeah.
is still left open. So I just think when it comes down to Warner Brothers and DC, I just think they got to start asking, asking themselves, look, what can we make to basically get the fans back on side, keep the fans still engaging with us, and at the same time, whatever games that we got coming up in the next year or two, start, kind of getting everyone excited with some information or something like that, like tiny tidbits that will basically get the fans talking about their
Hmm.
upcoming game. Like for example, the Wonder Woman game, right? It would have been a really good opportunity for them to say something about that game, like a tidbit news or whatever, like what year it's going to be released. At least people can have that conversation. Then the fans can have that conversation and be like, well, the game is coming out in this year. What can we expect from the game, or what villains can we expect from the game, and so on and so forth. Like, don't you agree with that term?
I do agree. Again, like I said, it's just one of those things where game development culture is very much unknown to us gamers. You know, the cycle, the way developers are, what it is that they envision, and so on and so forth. But you're right, Monolith is very, very quiet. Their last tweet that I get to see here, I'm looking, is their tweet where they congratulated NetherRealms for you know for Mortal Kombat 1 and just say, oh, it looks awesome,
Yeah,
pretty much. So they're not really talking much about their game. However, it means that they're just knee deep in development, no doubt about that. So honestly, I'm at the point where I would rather just see the game and play the game, you know,
right. Yeah,
so that we have a better understanding, because perception is huge, and I'm sure they probably are not saying much because perception is also a big deal. This is also another game I think could be a very good RPG, but it won't also be bad to have a brawler action adventure style game out of it as well too. She's just a very, very versatile character. My gosh, my gosh.
right. Yeah. I mean, I just hope and like hope that we do get some sort of like update on Wonder Woman, and even furthermore, it's like I want to start, like I want Warner Brothers to start promoting their stuff now. Like if even though you're like 6 months, 6 to 9 months out from Suicide Squad, it would be an ideal choice for them to start um, promoting their game. In an ideal world, right? You got Gamescom coming out coming up in August. So if you know what I mean. So
Mm, I agree. I
so
agree.
so that I think is. Do you want to call it there? And
Yeah, yeah, that was a great conversation.
yeah, so guys, this will be up on, if you're watching this on VG's channels, this will be on his channel, where we just discuss, a plethora of different things. But I would like both me and VG would like to hear your comments, your thoughts of what we discussed, and what video games that you want to see, and what mechanics would you like to see as well, because we would like to see that, like to see your comments, and we would definitely be we might even do more collabs in the future. You never know. So we've got to organize all that up, and we might have this conversation. We might even bring in more Combat One discussions, or better yet, maybe even Injustice conversations in the future. You never know. So, but VG, thank you for doing this collab with me.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you wanna do your ending and outro, so people let them know what you got.
I will definitely say, okay, so thank you very much, guys, for taking the time to join us for the conversation. Truly, would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. How do you see the DC, gaming IPs, and what are your thoughts regarding who should be featured next in possibly the next big DC game? Thanks very much, guys.